Welcome to another episode of Elizabeth and Mary Foundation. One of the things that we aim to do at our foundation is to bring the stories of remarkable women into view, and just to give every woman a voice. And we have stories that we go through, and sometimes we portray our stories to be marvelous, to have splendid endings, which is what the will of God is concerning us. But today we want to talk about the journey between the beginning and the end, the times where we are going through the most difficult times of our lives, when we are walking through the storm. And to talk to me about that today, I have my friend Mitzi. Mitzi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Mitzi has got a very remarkable story where she talks about the different things that she's gone through from the time she was young. Mitzi, could you just tell us about the story when you were young and you were molested by one of the boys in your circles?
Yes, I was probably about 10, and I was molested by my friend's brother and some of his friends. Mm-hmm. And he threatened if I said anything to his parents, he'd hit me with a spade. Mm-hmm. And being so young, obviously I believed him. Mm-hmm. So I didn't say anything, but it was weighing heavily on me, and eventually I decided to say something. Mm-hmm. And nobody believed me. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to also hit me with a spade, and his parents were disgusted that I actually accused him of doing something like that.
And you know, that's just one of the things that just brings fear. Imagine you have a young daughter. You said you were 10. A 10-year-old, and she's been molested by a family friend's child, and she comes and she talks to you about it, and no one believes her. When you say no one believes her, you're including your parents.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So no one believes her. So that means that these are women as well who are not believing the story of a young woman.
Correct.
And sometimes society does that to us. We're in a place where we can't even reach out to each other as women, where something horrible happens and no one can reach out and say,
nobody believes you. It's just unbelievable. There's only one person to reach out to, and that's when you pray.
Yes. And you know, you look at this kind of story, it just makes us so mindful, even when we have our own kids and they're playing together. And it's very important for us to look out for our young girls.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. To look out for our young girls and have them, prefer them. Whenever they say something, prefer them first. Prefer what they're saying, because it's not an easy thing for someone to come and say that they've been molested.
Correct, yeah.
Let them be proved wrong, but never take them to be wrong at first glance.
That's it, yeah.
And then your story goes on to the time that you were a bit of an when you were a young adult, and you went into a relationship. Could you tell us what happened there?
Okay, I basically was in a relationship with my ex-husband, and everything was going fine, but I just seemed to attract the abusive personalities. And unfortunately, he was abusive, and we eventually separated and got divorced. And then I went from that relationship into another abusive relationship. And then I went from that one into an even more abusive relationship. So eventually what happened was I decided that it's best not to be in a relationship, because then I won't be abused. And I reached out to Jesus, and I said to him, I can't be abused anymore, and I can't trust my choice in men. So I'll just stick with Jesus. That's it.
So when we look at that kind of situation, sometimes you seem to be having one struggle after the next struggle. And in reality, sometimes we don't really see that that burden is upon someone, where they're having one thing after the other. And life is lived in seasons. So when you look at when you look at a person from a certain season, you might not understand that season is a temporary season. And when you are the person who is within that season, you might then feel that my season is overwhelming.
Yes.
So there's a scripture that I like, that is from Job chapter 14, verse 7, which says that there is hope for a tree when it is cut down. even when its trees are, even when its leaves have fallen down, and it seems like its roots are beginning to dry up, but yet at the scent of water, it begins to sprout up again, and the leaves start coming up again. So when you see a tree in the autumn or winter time where the leaves are dry and the leaves have fallen off, you might believe that that tree is doomed, and you might be that tree, and you're in a season where you are in your autumn, you're in your winter, where your leaves are falling off and you're feeling like there's dryness in your life. But then there's a season that we need to anticipate, because the Bible does say that weeping remains for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And sometimes we count in our lives, we're looking at the hours and we're thinking that our night has been prolonged, and you've been like in a long night season.
Yes.
But the promise of God is that there will always be the breaking of the light. And as long as we continue to do, as you said, to trust in Jesus, to hold on to Jesus, to be prisoners of hope. You know, when the Bible says we are prisoners of hope, it's saying let's just be stuck in this hope zone because it works for us. To those who are perishing, it might be foolishness, but to us who are saved, it is the saving knowledge of God. It is the power of the gospel working in our lives. Yeah. So one thing that I would like to ask you, Mitzi, is from a perspective when you look at your life and the things that you've gone through, you say that it is God who has helped you to keep standing. What would you say, and you'd like to encourage someone who's going through a difficult situation? I know that right now, as we are saying this, every one of us is going through a difficult situation. It's not like we're all living rosy lives.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. So what can you say to that woman who feels that she's been in a trap, one thing after the other? What can you say to encourage her? We encourage others as we encourage ourselves.
You know, what I would say is that as long as you've got faith and as long as you've got hope, you can get out of any situation. And as sad as it may be and as hard as it may be, no matter what you're going through, there's always something greener on the other side, always. It's never the end. It's just a phase, and phases pass. They come and they go. And you just have to call on Christ, and you have to just ask him to be with you and be faithful to him and believe, because he will get you through anything. And believe me, he's got me through so many things in life, so many things that I can just attest to. As much of the darkness that's been in my life, I've had double the amount of light. And I've had so many miracles happen in my life, which I can only attest to God, because quite frankly, he has made so many miracles out of my life that a lot of the time I shouldn't be here. I should have died once or twice in my life, and he's kept me alive. So he is a loving God.
That is amazing. And when you say that there are times where you feel that you could have actually died, you know, in those abusive relationships when someone would hit you and stuff like that. But God kept you, you know. I'm reminded of the mother to Ishmael, Hagar. Hagar was a woman who was in the desert. She had been pushed out of a family that she had been connected to, and had actually been put into a situation where she would have a child for Abraham. And then after having that child, and then Abraham had a child with his own wife, they pushed her out, and she went into the wilderness, and she started crying out and saying, God, my son is dying. I'm dying. I'm hungry. But God heard Hagar's cry while she was in the desert. And she had food on her table when she didn't expect food to come to her table. She had shelter when she didn't expect shelter to come. You know, where God takes care of the person in the wilderness.
Correct.
I think that's part of the testimony that you have, Mitzi, that God has taken care of you in the wilderness. And you can rightfully say that. What can you say to the woman who's in the wilderness and feels that, I don't know where my next meal is going to come from? Can you just give them a testimony of how good God has shown himself and how particular he's been about you? I've
actually got a story for that. We were living with my little girls, and we had no money. We had literally been eating oats for about 3 weeks. And we didn't know where our next meal was going to come from, and we went to a church in Little Falls. We just went to church, and at that church, somebody spoke to us and asked us what our story was, and they donated 3 boxes of food. And we tried to get a lift home from the church. Nobody was able to give us a lift home, so we walked. It was about 3 kilometers. We walked with these 3 boxes, and I literally walked carrying, I don't know how heavy it was, but it was a long 3 kilometers. But to get home and to open a box of food that contains not jungle oats was amazing. To open up a tin of food, there was tinned Viennas and things like that, and that was just, we had nothing. That was just a miracle in itself.
Wow.
So yeah, he did answer us.
Wow. I just want to encourage you, if you're listening today and you've just been in a place where you feel that God hasn't been hearing you, where you feel like God has not been watching you. That's when you see that God divinely orchestrates help. In Psalm 20, it talks about him sending help from Zion. And he does that. He sends his angels, he sends his people who do amazing things in our lives, and that time where we don't know what to do and we don't know who to look to. So I want to thank you, Mitzi, for coming today to just share your story. And I know
You're
that
welcome.
someone somewhere is encouraged, because sometimes the testimony of just hearing someone telling you, I've been through stuff and I'm going through stuff, it says to the other sister, let's keep going. Let's keep holding on to Christ. Let's stay in faith. Let's fight the good fight of faith, because our victory is certain in Jesus. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Remember to subscribe to our channel and invite your friends to subscribe. Keep going. Don't give up. Goodbye.